I woke up to the kind of sound that turns your blood cold. A sharp crack wood, giving way, heavy feet crossing a line that should never be crossed. And by the time I grabbed my phone, 3 beams of light were slicing across my living room. Like they owned the place. 2 guys in navy polos, stamped HOA compliance, and a uniformed cop in the doorway, telling me to just cooperate, while my front door hung crooked like a broken tooth. I didn't scream. I didn't lunge. I flipped on the lamp, pointed to the framed Department of Justice certificate over my entry bench, and said very clear, "You just picked the wrong house." Their flashlights hit my name, and the air in the room shifted the way a storm shifts when thunder realizes it's late. My name is Ava Sinclair. I live in Maple Ridge Estates outside Cypress, Texas. The kind of neighborhood that sells the word peace like a product. Cul-de-sacs matching mailboxes. Yard flags on the 4th, kids on scooters. Everyone waving with just 2 fingers from the steering wheel. And I'm the quiet one. The woman who edges her lawn, brings banana bread to new folks. Wheels, the trash cans in before noon. The last person you'd expect to see with a door hanging off at 2 a.m. The tall compliance guy did his radio voice. "We received multiple noise complaints, ma'am. We have authority to inspect community disturbances." And I pointed at the microwave clock, glowing. This hour. While I'm asleep in pajama pants and a mouthguard come on, and the officer, Harper, decent eyes, tired posture, tried to smooth it over. "If we can just make this quick," Sinclair, while his 2 buddies swept their lights over my photos, and then oops over the DOJ certificate and the shadow box. With a couple challenge coins from a task force I worked on a decade ago, you could feel the bravado drain like someone had pulled the plug. The tall one flicked his eyes at the other, cleared his throat, and suddenly it was, "Let's step outside," and they did, leaving sawdust and cold air and that taste in my mouth. You get when humiliation and fury mix 50-50. I didn't sleep another minute, taped cardboard over the splintered frame, drank coffee that tasted like burnt coins, and watched the Maple Ridge Facebook group light up by sunrise. Anyone know why the cops were at Ava's? Thought. She was quiet. The quiet ones are always the worst, right? Maybe she had a party, and then a blurry photo of my busted door with the caption, "This is why we need the HOA." Around 8, Walter Price from across the street knocked retired engineer. "Steady hands, good heart, you?" "You okay, kiddo?" he asked. And I said fine, which was a lie in 8 directions, and he peered at the frame, whistled low that wasn't knocking, and I said no. That was theater. We were still talking when she arrived. Linda Carver, HOA president, crisp cardigan clipboard, like a badge chin. Pitched at that angle people use when they think gravity is optional. "Good morning, Ms. Sinclair." She said our compliance officers responded to several calls after midnight. Unfortunate property damage. Sometimes occurs when safety is at issue, and I pointed at the door and said, "You call this safety? Barging into a woman's home at 2 a.m. And Walter said, "My bedroom faces her living room." If she sneezed, I'd have heard it, which I didn't, and Linda smiled the smile of people who love rules, but not accountability. If you feel mistreated. There are forms you can file at the office, and I said no. I'll bring it up tonight with everyone. The clubhouse smelled like carpet cleaner and burned coffee, folding chairs full of neighbors pretending not to stare. Linda lined up with 4 board members, like a wedding party for a marriage. "No one blessed, thanks for coming." She said, "We want to prevent rumors. Multiple complaints. Swift response. Safety first. The kind of summary that turns real edges into soft shapes." and I stood without waiting. That door was kicked in at 2:11, and 3 men walked into my living room while I was asleep, and the room made that low animal sound people make when they know something's wrong, but fear the cost of saying so. Nina Patel, nurse, 3/12s a week, raised her hand. Windows open last night. I heard nothing from Ava's house, and Walter added, if there was a disturbance, it was authority enjoying itself, and Linda paper shuffled and promised an internal review. Please refrain from fueling online speculation. I should have gone home. I should have slept instead. I learned what systems do to people who don't bow. A yellow notice bloomed on my mailbox at 7 the next morning. Failure to maintain lawn edging, $175. Then, trash bins visible, 80. Then, improper porch lighting temperature, $120. And at 9:20, a blocked number told me you don't belong here. Pay your fines and stop making trouble. Click. I started a folder. Timestamps, photos, recordings. And Walter started 2 discrete pictures of a black SUV idling across from my house on 3 straight nights. Engine off, windows dark, and Nina kept a log of what she heard or didn't hear on the street. I called a civil rights attorney. I trust Elias Romero out of Houston. Unflappable, in a way that can quiet a kitchen classic pattern, he said. Stack fines, use fear. Make resistance expensive. We'll request the incident logs and any body cam from the officer. And I asked if they'd hand it over, and he said no. But the request makes them choose a lane. They chose fast and ugly. A letter slid under my door on day 4. Notice of pending lien in bold tallying, $1 $305 due within 30 days. Lien to follow foreclosure. Possible, yeah, that happened, and I walked to the HOA office and asked to see Linda, and she came out with 2 board members flanking her like decorative columns. You can pay online, Ms. Sinclair, she said. And I set the letter down and leaned in. This is fraudulent and retaliatory. You know it, I know it. If you think you're going to leverage fake violations to take my deed, I will staple this to a lawsuit and bring 36 affidavits with it. And she said, no one is stealing your house. And I said, then stop pretending you can. And she said, attention isn't good for neighborhoods like ours. And I said, say people like you, if you're going to say it, own it. And she straightened the dying fern in the corner and said, we're done here. That night, just before 2, I woke to the softest scrape in my keyhole. Careful patient, and muscle memory did what it does. Camera on. 911 dialed. I braced behind the hallway corner. The lock clicked. A kid in a cheap black hoodie slipped inside and froze when the lamp came on, and you just made the biggest mistake of your life, I said. Who sent you? I'm recording, and his voice cracked, a lady downtown. No name, envelope of cash. Scare you, leave the door open, break some stuff. And sirens rushed the room blue-red, and Officer Harper put him down and into cuffs, while I handed over the video. By morning, Linda blasted a community email telling residents not to speculate about the unfortunate incident at Ms. Sinclair's home. And by lunch, I had 6 new messages from neighbors with their own stories. Book club, 5 minutes past quiet hours. A chalk drawing violation. A threat to tow a car parked in front of its own house. You know what I mean. And by 3, I got served Maple Ridge HOA versus Ava Sinclair. Defamation, interference with governance. Failure to comply. Elias sighed. They want to exhaust you. Most people fold when they see the price tag. And I said, I worked case review. Burying me in paper is like burying a fish in water. Court has a particular hum. Perfume nerves toner. And the first hearing drew reporters and neighbors who tried not to look like neighbors. Linda sat in a pale blue cardigan that said reasonable to people who read clothes like truth, and their lawyer Langley led with property values and online hostility. And Elias answered with exhibits, the police report noting my house was quiet, the video of the intruder admitting he was paid the lien letter. That followed my public complaint, the timestamps that lined up a little too neat. The judge looked at me. Did you publicly accuse the Board of Criminal Conduct? Yes. Your Honor, because they entered my home without lawful cause at 2:11. And later, someone was paid to come back, and then Langley called a witness, Mark Carver, Linda's husband, who swore there was loud music and shouting, and that he was present as part of HOA oversight. And Elias pulled the official incident report, where Mark's name didn't appear nearby. Present, Carver. Because your sworn says present, and the paper says otherwise. Which story would you like the court to believe? And the room did that shift. You can feel in your spine when a narrative loses its last leg. While the case crawled toward discovery, residents petitioned for an emergency membership meeting. The bylaws are proud of themselves, but they're clear on removal for cause. And the clubhouse overflowed on a sticky night, people bringing their own chairs, toddlers chasing goldfish crackers, a retired teacher hugging a binder like a Bible. And I didn't go to perform. I went with a stack of paper and a voice that knew how to pace. I talked about pattern, not opinions, the door at 2:11, the fines that sprouted like weeds the morning after I spoke the anonymous call. The lien letter printed like a ransom note, the SUV idling across from my house, the kid on my camera saying a woman paid him cash, and Nina stood up. They cited my book club for 5 minutes past quiet hours, and Walter said they threatened to tow my car from in front of my own home. And Linda said, we protect order without rules. Neighborhoods decay. It starts with a bin and ends with a junkyard. And I said, when your rules are wrong, who protects us from you? The vote didn't swell with music. It moved through emotion, and a second, and a lot of throat clearing. Then hands lifted. Hesitant, then higher. The secretary counted out loud. Numbers get loud. When they're honest, and when she read the tally, the room went still. In that deep way, endings have by majority. Vote effective immediately. Linda Carver is removed as president of the Maple Ridge Estates Homeowners Association, and the badge on Linda's lanyard looked very small. She unclipped it with fingers that didn't want to shake, and set it down like it might burn. No applause, no victory lap. Just the absence of humiliation, a border resetting to where it always should have been. And here's the part people argue about. The lawsuit still lives. The police are still tugging the thread between a kid in a hoodie and a woman with an envelope. Some neighbors still call me a troublemaker. Under their breath, while others bring pie property values. Didn't collapse, the world didn't end. My hinges are longer now, and I sleep lighter, and that folder on my kitchen table gets thicker by the week. If you've been told to stop making trouble when all you did was tell the truth, I want to hear it. Do HOAs protect order or hand bullies a rule book? Where's the line between community standards and control? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me if I was right to push or if I went too far. Share.